I'm new at this and, already late.
Did you get the draft?
Yeah, I got that. Okay, let's call the meeting to order. Um, let's have opening invocation and the pledges of allegiance. Please stand. Heavenly Father, we come to you today as an assembled body. We humbly request that you bless our meeting, community, our nation. Help us diligently work for the common good and in the best interests of those who have been elected to represent. Guide us to insightful, prudent in our intentions, vision, plans, deliberations, decisions, and their fulfillment. Work through us to provide a spirit of welcome to all in attendance and to engage in respectful and thoughtful dialogue, discussion with understanding, wisdom, and humility. I thank Bob Lux for that prayer. Next, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah. Honor the Texas. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Yeah, I'll get that better in the future. Okay, so do we have any people from the public that'd like to speak? Nope. So let's move on to request for adjustments, relief from charges. Anything there?
Nothing.
Nope, nothing this week. Okay. Okay, let's go to the consent agenda. Anybody have any comments about the consent agenda? Any modifications? Did you get yours fixed?
Yes, I fixed my.
You fixed yours? Okay, got names fixed?
Yes.
Anything else?
Yeah, in the future, if you ever see any typos or anything,
Right,
send them to Shelley and we'll get it fixed
Yeah.
before the meeting.
okay, that's good. I saw it right before the meeting, so
Yep, yep.
I told Susanna,
Not a big deal.
Not a big deal.
not a big deal, right? Can I have get a vote on accepting the consent agenda? Get a vote,
Yes,
get a second?
yes, a second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, let's go to the regular agenda. We receive monthly SRA Woodlands Division report, including updates on operations, projects, and public outreach.
All right, well, good afternoon. The report's in your package on page 17 to 34. The first part of the report is the Woodlands Division report. The second part of that is going to be the GRP division.
Yeah.
Just a couple of things to note while you're thinking if you have any questions. First item is that on page 20, you're going to see the financials for the month of April. Typically, we're 1 month behind, not 2 months behind on the financials. However, May 1st, we did a software swap on our accounting system. And so therefore, the April financials are the last ones out of the old system. At the July meeting, you'll see May and June financials. So playing a little bit of catch
I'm
up.
assuming it ended at a calendar end month.
It did, end of month. The other item is prior to the meeting, Ed passed out a flash drive, a blue and silver flash drive. On those flash drives, you will have everything that we have on the wastewater strategic plan, everything we have and everything we were given on the AC water line conditions assessment. Also have the 10-year project plan, as well as the presentation that went along with that we gave in March of this year. And then the contracts, every contract and every supplemental agreement we have between MUD 46, MUD 46 and the river. There's also a couple maps in there. We have printed them for the orientation, made them electronic so you could blow up and look at them a little bit better. So that's all I have unless you have any questions.
Which 10-year plan is it? Because I understand they move every year. Do you have the history of the past few years?
We can definitely provide that. That is just the most recent one at this point in time.
Okay. Thank you.
They're all on the website, aren't they? All of them or a number of them?
They're on the Google Drive.
Google Drive, okay. Okay. do you guys have, did you guys get a printed copy? The last meeting?
I'm sure.
Okay, it's a spiral notebook like that.
Yes.
No, you did? Okay, good. Anything else?
I don't much have any questions. The maps that are on your flash drive, we ask that you not distribute those to the public. They fall under the Homeland Security rule of confidentiality.
Oh, interesting.
What map would that be?
Water and sewer maps.
Oh, the water and sewer layout, the pipelines. Okay. You've provided that in the past on a PowerPoint, haven't you?
Probably wouldn't have been at a scale you.
Scale you could, right,
These are of a scale that
you could make use of.
search.
Okay, I've seen,
Line sizes and colors. And
okay. What else we have? Anything else? Okay, let's, receive update to the water reclamation facility number 1.
afternoon. Call your attention to the email that's in your board packet on page 35 and 36. Over the course of the last 50 plus days, several directors have mentioned that they've got questions they want, they're looking for additional information regarding the water reclamation facility. And so we sat down and figured out, okay, we need to figure out how to get answers to questions. So we thought about one more evaluation feasibility to look at different aspects of the water reclamation facility. During the original phase 1 of the strategic plan, we went through and looked at a number of options, but early on, stakeholders, being the vendor from each of the money, said, let's take VR and move forward with that evaluation and not spend any time on the other because they didn't want to incur the expense. The questions are being asked about, okay, what does conventional treatment look like versus MBR?
Mhm.
And so in this email is a request basically to do a full evaluation of conventional treatment on new land and then a in place in the existing sewer plant. And then in the last couple of meetings that we've gone through the last couple of days, several directors have asked a repair in place, different from replace in place. And so we're not opposed to that. And when I get to the end, I'll ask you how to proceed on that. There's also 2 ways to deliver this project through design and construction. One is through the competitive seal proposal process, which SJRA uses day in and day out on all of our projects. It evaluates the contractor's price along with his qualifications and other aspects of his submittal. The alternative is a construction manager at risk, which is called CMAR. A lot of the school districts use CMAR to deliver school buildings because it provides, in most cases, they're under a very compressed schedule, and it also provides them a guaranteed price. The other value of it is there's value engineering going on during the design and construction because the contractor and in the case of architects, they're working together to figure out the best way to get the project built at the least cost. So in our case, the most recent CMAR project that we had was the surface water plant up at the lake. That was under a tight schedule. We had a fixed budget, and so we were able to deliver that project on time and on budget. So we want to, in both the evaluation of the different treatment processes and on the different delivery methods, we want to look at the advantages and disadvantages of each item and then be able to offer you the information associated with that. Down to the 3rd bullet point towards the bottom of the page, project site layouts. We have a conceptual layout for MBR on new land. We need a conceptual layout for conventional on new land. And then we also need a conceptual layout for the existing site property because under the TCQ rules, we end up having to replace some of the basins and
whatnot on the existing site, we end up under the TCQ 217 rules, which may require some additional basins, redundancy on the processes. So we would need to have a layout so that we have a true comparison of the three options. So repair in place doesn't really require a layout, but so we probably save a little money in not having to do that. We would want to, I'm down to the bottom of page 35, the last bullet point on that page, to do a 50-year, do a project cost
15.
of all of the alternatives that were being discussed and the different delivery methods. And then we'd also do a 50-year planning costs for what costs for operation and maintenance going forward. That would look at, you know, just the routine stuff that would happen along with the mechanical and electrical that's typically replaced at 20 and 25-year time period. Flipping over to the next page, this would give us a basic budget impact or rate impact. And as you can see there, it suggests that we're looking at 25 or 30-year bonds for funding these projects. The final thing that we would ask for is, as part of this evaluation, is manpower needs. We know that we have a certain size staff. We don't have all the technical capabilities to be able to do MBR or conventional design. So we need staff, we need manpower to help us evaluate and manage those projects. The consultant that we choose would have experience in estimating manpower needs and what type of staffing we would need, both whether it's they're hired as a permanent employee or a subcontract employee. Finally, Freeze Nichols did the strategic planning efforts. They did a good job, but we think based on comments that we've heard and received, it'd be best to do an independent consultant to do this evaluation. So we have a consultant that we were hired that has not been involved in the strategic planning, but they were hired to help us as an owner's advisor, and we would direct that scope to what we're talking about here. And they would provide the expertise because the individual, the firm would need to have experience with CMAR. They would have to have experience with competitive seal proposal bidding processes. They would have to have design experience with membranes and also the conventional technologies. So we need that expertise to be able to give this evaluation the fair shot that you all have indicated that you want. Finally, some of the MUDs have already, most of the MUDs today, those that have approved a supplemental agreement have rescinded their supplemental agreement. And then those that have not acted on their supplemental agreement, we're asking that they hold on it so that this study can be accomplished. Takes about 8 months, 6 to 8 months to do this study. And we may have a different recommendation at the end of that. And we would need a different supplemental agreement at that time. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. We're trying to be responsive to what the directors have mentioned. And so that's what this study is trying to accomplish.
So,
Wow.
the first bullet,
Path forward.
yeah, the first bullet is you call replace
Well,
in
no,
place.
path forward would be, there's not an action item on today's
I
agenda.
understand.
So we would ask that you talk amongst yourself and direct your trustee to go to the July meeting and voice your approval or disapproval of this concept and going forward. And the concept would add, if you all are so interested, add the fourth bullet for repair in place, along with replace and then the conventional and MBR.
I guess the question I have is the definition of repair in place. I mean, I guess the expectation of a number of us believe that what we're looking for is basically renew what we have now and maintain the current plant. I don't know how you want to select those words, but it's basically, you've given us a roadmap, through this document right here. You've told us everything that needs to be repaired. and we have a cost for it.
That's essentially what we would include in the repair in place.
But in the trustee meeting, you mentioned that there's a Texas Environmental Quality Commission restriction. And you mentioned in this chapter 217.
Correct.
And if you read a footnote in chapter 17, it references, it says, if your facility was approved and built before August 27, 2008, designed under the 30 TAC, chapter 371, following those rules for operation and maintenance only, not for new design. So it seems like we're covered by the old rule.
Not entirely. And the reason why is if you end up replacing their aeration basins because they no longer work. It's just hypothetical. If you end up replacing the aeration basins, you would not pull the plan from when that was originally designed. You would do a new design. And that's when the rule would change from 317 to 217.
I can understand that for the aeration bases, which are not in use, as an example.
To go in and replace a pump or a clarifier drive, that does not change the rules.
But if you look at this sheet, except for the aeration basin, that's what you propose doing. You propose to change out, let's say, the mechanical and electrical components without any redesign.
What we've added since the trustee meeting is that fourth bullet to allow for repair in place. That list,
When you say fourth bullet,
the fourth bullet is not on there.
It's not on here.
That's been added in the last 2 days.
2 days. So there's a modification to your email
When was the trustee meeting?
last week,
A week ago.
week ago Wednesday.
And you were there?
I was there. So what you're telling me that you've
We're
modified,
trying to respond to what the directors have asked for, David, and they have asked for a fourth option to include repair in place.
okay, repair in place defined as we swap out the old components. As best, right, we can decide that detail later, but, so that's the fifth bullet or the fourth bullet, okay.
Fourth bullet under the first dark bullet.
There's 4 bullets there, bullets already, is it the fifth
Well-
bullet? Not to get that,
If you look at it, the last one on there talks about advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons.
pros and cons
So the repair in place would be added under
underneath that, okay,
that concept,
okay.
under different treatment technology.
Okay. Okay, so you want us to discuss this? We obviously have to discuss it now in public, or how do you want to?
Yes, just you discuss and just all the directors should talk and give you insight into the direction that you would want. That they would want you to go at the trustee meeting.
Right. So I'll make my comments and then
Well, I think
you guys can
at
respond.
least moving forward, where they added the repair.
They repair, I mean, obviously that's a positive
That
change.
wasn't there before.
That was a positive change.
Yes.
And,
Respond to what y'all would like.
yeah, and so, if that change is,
I think you're having a problem with the definition. You want,
I mean,
you
well,
want,
you're right. We had concern with the term replace in place. It's kind of an odd combination of words, but we're interested in swapping equipment out. I mean, not redesign. And you've acknowledged that we're going to have that as an option.
Right.
So I'm generally okay with it then, with that statement included.
Okay.
And that's what I would express to the
I think
two
it's a
of you.
huge, making progress and then understanding what the concerns are
Right.
of the community. And I think adding that is a very positive step because you're listening. And I agree with you. I think we should go forward with that.
You always need a base case.
So
Correct.
I guess I have my direction.
Thank you, Ed, for providing this.
So the next is the general manager's report.
Next item is 12, which there's no action because you didn't.
Oh, supplement agreement.
No action because you never
Okay.
made action. So then it's
Oh,
13.
next is the budget. We have a spokesman for the budget.
Yes, we do.
All right.
So as y'all recall, I did present the budget last month to y'all. So if y'all have any questions, I'm here and happy to answer anything y'all might have on the Woodlands budget. Just a reminder that our wholesale water is going down 2% to $2.73. And the wholesale wastewater fee is staying the same at $5.65. And the GRP fee that y'all see on your bills, we're proposing that to go down to $2.97, which is a 7% increase. Y'all have any questions?
How's chemicals doing?
Chemicals doing,
Last year they went up a lot.
yes.
Are they stabilizing?
For the most, they're stabilizing. We're looking at about a 3, maybe a 5% increase, but the biggest one is the chlorine usage. And part of the increase going up so much, we actually went and found a new technology that came out in the past 12, 18 months to start reducing the chlorine output. So the price is going up, but the usage is going down. So we're trying to find additional ways to be efficient.
That's really.
They want to tell you the wrong number, but I did have a slide in here, so our budget for chemicals is going down about 150,000 for next year's budget because of the things you mentioned.
How about natural gas? Is that should be coming back down?
Natural
Some,
gas, the budget.
your electricity,
Yeah, electricity is definitely a big drop down. Natural gas is only $6,000, maybe $10,000 a year, so
is not a big deal.
not a big mover. But electrical costs went down, if I'm not mistaken, at least 800,000, 900,000. Big drop.
So with this reduction, I understand that the GRP fees are increasing with the population growth. I mean, not the fees, but the revenue,
The demand is increasing.
right, because of the development in Montgomery County. How much of this, the savings is related to that population increase? Will it repeat itself each year from now on? Or we don't?
So the GRP held steady at the demand of 54.54 million gallons a day for 2 years. So FY 23 and FY 24. And so you have 2 years of demand growth that were not included in the budget due to the drought. So you can't separate growth versus drought, right? So we were seeing the revenues coming in, which is why you got the credit partially because of the drought, but also because demand was low. That's why you're having the 4 million gallon a day increase in FY 25. Going forward, we don't know. It's projected to increase, but we don't know if it's a 1% increase, 2 million gallons a year, 4 million or so. Roughly, we're looking at about 1.5% increase potential each year, growth increase.
And that's really the GRP budget. So as far
Right.
as the Woodlands budget that I'm here to present, that doesn't directly
include that.
impact this budget, but
Right.
just to clarify two different.
Oh, yeah, he asked GRP.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a GRP question that rolls into your budget. Yeah. Anything else?
Yep, I don't
We
know.
take action next month?
Yes, y'all will direct your trustee next month for the trustees meeting in August to approve for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one more budget to present to you.
I handed y'all
Budget, how
this one, right before the meeting started, I handed out a budget that looks like
Yeah.
this. So the first sheet is the detailed budget for the Bear Branch division of the San Jacinto River Authority. This is for the operations and maintenance of the Bear Branch Reservoir, Dam and Spillway, the dam, reservoir and flowage easement. So our Lake Conroe division has a contract with the Five Muds to provide that maintenance in that area. This is to be able to continue their normal operations and maintenance. Included in this is also to continue the dam rehabilitation and the soil cement replacement project that is partially funded by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It does have an additional contribution in here for the cash portion of those projects. But it's just a continuation of the projects that have been going on. Y'all's portion, we said this is 133,596 for next year's contribution. That contribution typically happens in October, which is actually a $12,000 decrease from last year.
And did the federal money, that's flowing through the Corps of Engineers?
And we're starting, as we get pay requests from the consultant that's working on that project,
Submit them to the federal government.
and we're getting reimbursed.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question about the Bear Ranch.
Yeah.
Yeah. I understand that we were able to get some money from the federal government to renew. I noticed with the past few storms that we have a lot of people going up on the dam. Is there consideration to have a public dock so people can go see it instead of breaking and entering?
We've talked to the township over the last few years about putting kayak kiosk at one of the parks upstream of the dam.
Right.
My recollection is we told them, yes, they could do it. I don't know if they have. But we are having problems with vandalism of cutting the fence and graffiti on the dam face, and even kids wakeboarding on the flow through the spillway in high water.
Do we have any signage directing them to where they can go?
I don't know if there's signage telling them how to access the dam.
Right.
We have signage up there telling them they're trespassing.
Right. Well, telling where they can go. I understand like the no trespassing sign's pretty firm and people do it anyways, which isn't right, but it happens, but saying
Save us from liability issues just because we did no trespassing sign.
no trespassing sign. However, if you'd like to go access the water, this is where you can't go.
That would generally be through the township,
Township.
through their parks and trails.
Great.
But it's mainly on the north side because the south side is all Carlton Woods. The majority is Carlton. I'll visit with township, see if there's any signage about directions on how to gain legal access.
Yes. I don't want the vandalism to continue, but it happens.
Been out there every week this month repairing the dams.
Any indication who's cut it? No.
We have
High
cameras,
school is with the time of year.
we have cameras up, but we don't do facial
Right,
recognition.
you can't, yeah, you
And they're
definitely.
not giving us our license on the cameras.
Yeah, yeah. I've been involved with cameras and recognizing people, and your chances are very slim.
Yeah.
To recognize people off those cameras.
Get what I've experienced is the quality of the picture
Right.
in order for the DA to even press charges is
Very, very shaky. All we could tell when they broke into the facility was that's a human body running across the field. And that was about it. You know what I mean? Okay, so, Ryan, you're up.
14, we have 14 for Bear Branch.
Oh, I thought okay. Okay.
Well, that was the budget.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So a little bit different topic, but for new directors, there was a project that was, or a study that was started a couple years ago in response to, and call it a drainage hotspot that's been known in the area for many years. It's in the area of Research Forest from Gosling to the high school and just west of there. So the streams on either side of that corridor are Bear and Panther Branch. The study was started in which you all are a stakeholder of. There's 6 participants in the study that was started a couple years ago. And the intention of the study was to improve the drainage, obviously in that area, in particular, to lower the water surface elevation on Research Forest specifically. The other areas will also, lower if the project's successful as well. But specifically to help ingress and egress across Research Forest, particularly in those heavier rainfall events. So that study was, I guess, essentially completed a few months ago, and then SJA asked LJA, the consultant, Donnie's group, to update the cost estimate. To give you some background, there's a couple different funding pieces that are already in place in upwards of about, I think, $11.3 million of funding in place. The biggest stakeholder in this project is Med 67 at about 62%. And then there's 7, 46, 47, 60, 67 in Metro are all players in it at different, a lot smaller percentages. And so, like I said, there's a I think a low interest, a no interest loan, or excuse me, a no interest, no interest, bond, I believe for 67. And then there's a small grant, and then there's, I think, some cash from the stakeholders. So, with that and kind of having the update a couple weeks ago, I felt like it was time for us to hear an update from LJA, both on a little bit of the history of where we got here, how this came about, and then what the new cost estimates are, and then maybe talk about some paths forward. So Donnie Reed's here with LJA to talk about that.
Yeah, good evening, good afternoon, whatever you want to call it. Just want to give you kind of because I know we got some new directors here, so to kind of give you an update, kind of history, just a brief look history. You know, the Woodlands started back in the late 70s, early 80s. We did the drainage study for the Woodlands back then, and that's the model that we've been using over the past 40 years to check how drainage and different events are affecting the Woodlands. It has been functioning as the Woodlands have been functioning as the model has been originally designed, but it's an old model. It's something that was, from the 80s. So in 2016, you had a tax day event. And then right after that, you had a month later, you had a Memorial Day event. And talking with some of my folks before, they reminded me that a year earlier, we had a Memorial Day event there. So in 15, we had an event. And then fast forward to April 16, you had an event. A month later, had another one. And then a year later, we had the big Harvey event. So we were asked by the Woodlands Water to come in and look at where we can do some improvements to reduce ponding, reduce flooding events that were in the Woodlands. And we went all over the Woodlands looking at different areas that had significant water from those events standing or that caused flooding, and looked at what we could do to improve those. Inlet improvements, ditch improvements, cutting swells between homes, whatever we could look at, whatever we could do to improve. The MUD's probably spent $1 million+ on various improvements out there. MUD 67, where the Capstone area is around the high school, Twinwood area, had a lot of ponding is there as well. We looked at several options. Only thing that really could be done is improvements to Bear and Panther Branch, because any type of swell or inlet that we would improve, the water still had no place to go because the real backup was at Panther and Bear Branch. So we took that old model, ran some analysis of what improvements we could do, came up with an analysis and said, hey, we can cut some swell and deepen the swell that's in there, do some underbrushing, and also need to put some detention ponds right there at Godsling, and came up with needing roughly about $11.3 million for those improvements, based upon that old model. We talked to several different people, different agencies to see where we could get money to fund, this different this project. Basically came up with the Water Development Board came in and said, hey, we're willing to help you out with Erica talked about. From there, one of the main things we need to do was get an updated model, a model that is to current standards that would be recognized by FEMA, by the county, by the cities, whatever agencies that we need to submit to and talk with, to be able to look at this and say, this is a functioning model. The old model is fine for checking stuff and, to say we're fine, but, to move forward, we need something that's more up to date that we can run analysis. So the good news, one of the good points about this whole thing is we now have a updated working functional model that is based upon today's standards. You have that in place. From that, we can run several analysis of looking at different events of what can be done. Well, when we ran the analysis on the new model, the amount of excavation, the amount of detention, the amount of underbrushing that we need to do had increased because the old model said we didn't need that much. The new one said we did. So therefore, our cost went up roughly for construction costs, roughly about $6 to $8 million. That's based upon the model itself. If we went to the next step, we need to go into design. Then we need to look at, are we going to have any utility conflicts with, underground fiber optics or any, cables or that nature that we'd have conflict with. There's a couple of gas pipelines that we have to cross. Are we going to have any issues with that? There's some other things, we'd have to see in design. But based on the model, we said the cost would go up about $6 or $8 million is what we need.
Question, I'm sorry to interrupt. Is the new model also the 2 retaining ponds, or has it increased, or it's just bigger ponds?
It's bigger ponds.
Okay.
It's bigger ponds. So that's basically where we stand right now. Part of the process, one of the things that I want to make sure that we're aware of, there's environmental issues that are, could always be, come up. Well, when we first started looking at this, several years ago, back in 17 or 16 and 17, I'd made a couple of trips up to the Corps, talked to them about this project. The Corps at the time said, yeah, what you're doing, that's standard, kind of maintenance, so to speak. We don't see any problems if you disturb a wetlands, you just restore it to, something close to, and they we didn't see any major expense with that. However, when you start dealing with the Corps, you start dealing with the EPA, you start dealing with wetlands, that could trigger based upon, who's in office and, what type of things change. So that could trigger something that could be, millions of dollars. They would require us to go buy credits. And that's, if you look at, there's a cost estimate in there, it shows 82 million, and you're going, oh God, why'd you come over that? Because it's a shock number. It's one of those things I don't think is gonna happen. It's the chances of that are really low, but if, an administration comes in and says, hey, there's new rules, and we have to do that, there's, our hands are tied, and we have to pay those credits. And that would basically kill the project, in my opinion, because I can't see any reason why you'd want to spend that type of, those millions of dollars just to start this project. So that's the only reason you have those numbers in there. So that's kind of the history of where we started to get to this point now. That's why you see the costs going up a little bit more. Depending upon where we go, from here forward, we can get more refined numbers. And those numbers be a little bit more, maybe could they be a little bit less, maybe. Is there some other options that we could look at? Maybe to, move the detention ponds, because, at the time we looked at it, limited budget, limited time to go forward. We said, hey, let's do this improvements here. We're going to be speeding up water through Bear and Panther Branch, so we need detention. That place we need to find at that time, we're putting them right there at Gosling. Is that the best location for them as far as cutting down trees, moving trees? That's other people's decisions, it's not mine. I'm just giving you options. So can we find other places to put those in? Can we find a little, can we do some improvements further down Gosling? Maybe so. Now that we have a functioning, working, I shouldn't say functioning, now that we have a better model, up-to-date model, we can run those analysis and look at some things a little easier than running these old models, pulling stuff out, and it should be easier to look at. So
from that summary and the updated cost estimates, I didn't necessarily feel like it would be really good to go back to the MUDs and try to figure out how to find 6 or 8 million from the MUDs. So one of the things that has been going on in the background, kind of until now unrelated to this, was the recreation of the One Water Task Force. And that group is just now starting to meet and try to get its bearings and figure out, what's the path forward. I sensed that there was, or I knew that there was a need to find an opportunity for that group to have something to go run for, or run with. And so this kind of came about around that same time. And so I think it might make sense to maybe bring this before that group and see if we can, find some money for this outside of the MUDs. I feel like there's probably 3 options right now. One, do nothing, drop the project and walk away. I don't think that's the best option necessarily, just because this is a good project that does bring a lot of benefit to that region, which happens to be, outside of Creekside, which is not in WWA. That really is, one of the major hotspots, I'll call it, in drainage problems that we have in the Woodlands, because the Woodlands fares very well in a lot of these storms. Option 2, try to go find some funding. And so I brought it to One Water's attention this week with the help of, there was township is involved, myself, some directors, as well as in this particular meeting, we had representative from Crenshaw's office as well. And what I really see as, probably a path forward is growing support from not just, the MUDs, not just the township, but Howard Hughes, probably the new commissioner coming in, state money, federal money. And really, this is a community project. This isn't just a MUD thing. And so, in my opinion, I think we can probably grow some support around that from those different regions or different municipalities and agencies, and see if we can find some money. before we, now the third option would be to kind of, as Donnie mentioned, the model's done. That's the heavy lifting. So once the model's done, you can kind of just throw things at the model and see maybe is there a better option? Is there a cheaper option? I'm not sure that there's a silver bullet in that, but there may be something that is more palatable. One of the things that has been an issue with the idea of this project, and it's a concern of the township, is so for this project to work, you essentially speed up the water through those creeks, through the two streams to get it out of that area, but then you can't continue that speed, right? So you build the detention ponds to grab it, before it keeps going at that speed. In order to create the speed, and I'm talking very loosely on the engineering of it, you have to clear a little bit and you have to underbrush a good bit. That speeds up the water. Right now, it's just going through the forest essentially. That hasn't been the most palatable, just in the township's eyes and some of the community's eyes in those areas. So that's a hurdle that we'll need to at least discuss and get through. But those are kind of the three options as I see it. And I've started the second option, at least to initiate discussion on maybe we can find some funds here somewhere else.
Question. This all emanated with the fact that emergency vehicles couldn't respond. Is that correct?
It's part of it. And home issues.
Isn't there some way to focus on that as a responsibility of the township, really? More than, because if you can't respond, if your 911's, your fire department, whatever, can't respond because of a certain situation that takes place randomly, maybe once a year, it seems like you're not supplying a basic need to the community.
Potentially, although I think the argument would be there's two other egress major east-west corridors. So do you really need, I mean,
Forest is a major.
that's an argument, sure. But there's arguments against that as well. But I don't think anyone would disagree that egress across Research Forest is an important thing. So, and that's everybody. And I can't speak for, any of the other players, but I do think that, from a safety aspect, being able to move emergency vehicles through that area is definitely important, for sure. And was one of the main reasons.
Well, I
for that.
think
It wasn't just to, get water, out of the homes or whatnot, or out of the streets, but it was for that too.
Yeah, makes sense that it would have to be that.
So, we had the Spring Creek effort going on, which is hundreds of millions. And now we have this. Is there a, in terms of getting money from the feds or the state, is there a drop dead date that we pursue those and then make a decision to when to do this ourselves? Or is that, the
Not
Spring
necessarily.
Creek has been going on for a while with limited success, I'd say. Very
Yeah,
limited
that's a
success.
whole different issue
That's right.
there, and probably has a different time frame. I will tell you that is another project that was in as part of the discussion
Right.
as being something that the One Water Group could probably look at. With this one being probably a little bit more attainable because of the magnitude, because of its, improvements to that entire area, service area, and it's so close. I mean, we're right there. The study's done. Yes, it needs a good bit of engineering. Those numbers need to be refined significantly. I think, it's probably more than 6 or 8 million. I wouldn't hold it to that. I would probably want to be a little conservative in whatever we're asking for until we can get a more refined design on the project itself. These are very preliminary numbers. It should, so.
And the future detention ponds are these red hatched areas. We don't have to get land. We cover,
Utilize those.
use what we have.
Sorry, are you done?
Okay.
Mr. Yates, I have a question. Because you mentioned that we get into Fish and Wildlife with having that federal nexus. What federal nexus do we have on in Woodlands Water?
Well, it just impacts if we're trying to do a project on property that is designated as wetlands, then you get hit with having to comply with all those requirements. If a Woodlands Water District is doing a project on property that's deemed to be wetlands.
Okay, but we don't have any federally designated wetlands here,
Well,
or is it just wetlands in general?
at this point.
Okay.
And you can generally, Donnie, you can talk to this, but you can generally work within the within the wetlands as long as you restore that area
Correct.
and are not making these massive changes to it.
Okay.
Right.
Correct.
Or
That's what they-
expanding it.
That's basically what they said. Like I said, those rules. Yeah.
These rules do
Yeah.
kind of depend on who's in office too. at
Yeah, yeah,
times.
Always.
Is the One Water publishing minutes?
Not at the moment.
No.
And I had another question for you. I'm sorry. Can you tell me your name again?
Donnie.
Donnie?
Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I understand that we have fault lines within the woodlands. And I didn't notice any geological component of the cost estimate. Was the geology taken in court?
No, it wasn't.
No? Okay. Because that could present a problem, correct, with the model?
Not necessarily, because the model is gonna take into account, topo restrictions that are out there. So I mean, if there's a fault shift, then basically if we pick up topography, it would show that. But, what it's gonna do over time, that's not necessarily reflected on the model, so to speak.
Okay. Because I understand Mr. Thaler in Mud 67 is a geologist himself. So I didn't know if he had brought up that question previously in his meeting.
No, but even if you make assumption, I know that one of the, I think it was Wet 47, that concept of fault lines and related subsidence and that concept had come up. And I think, to the extent that there is additional subsidence, you see on the paperwork there, what the projected gain is in terms of reduction of surface water elevation. So if you're losing some incremental amount of elevation due to subsidence, then you're basically chewing up some of your gain
Mhm.
as a result of that. And I don't know what the science is behind the subsidence and at fault lines. But
Right. But that wasn't taken in accordance with any cost for this project. Okay.
And these triangles are in inches? Yes. Okay.
No, I think that's, it's 2 feet, 2.3.
Oh, feet.
Yes.
In feet.
Yeah, 2.3 feet or 2.5 feet, yes.
So, yeah, no real action, just wanted to kind of tell you where we're heading and it's better.
And my last question is I understand in the Conroe paper, they were talking about having a park in the Spring Creek floodway. So is the township and the other components of One Water, are they going to put that project on hold in order to get this one accomplished?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay.
That was not a discussion that came up from the township at all.
Well, I think
I don't think it has any bearing on this, but.
Yeah. Well, it's just in terms of monies allocated, we shouldn't be spending money on a park in a floodway if we have to worry about ingress, egress for emergency vehicles on Research Forest.
Yeah, that's not a mud discussion.
Mhm.
That's for the township,
Okay.
I guess.
Okay, thank you. That's a good presentation.
Yes.
So now the attorney's report.
nothing to cover in open session.
Sounds ominous.
Okay, now it's,
Just a
it's
little
Eric's
foreshadowing.
turn.
All right, yes, good evening. I've got a few things tonight. Did want to mention that we did conduct the new director orientations. We had one on the 5th and the 10th. And then Mr. had one on the 7th. I feel like it went pretty well and was educational, informative. So based on that success, or at least how I felt like it went, I thought coming out of it that there might be an opportunity for us to what I'll call it kind of a workshop series library. What I'd like to do is maybe further build some topics, some educational topics for directors, not just new directors, but all directors going forward on specific topics that might be of interest to directors that maybe we can develop some content. So I'd ask if, as time goes on, if you can think of any topics or things that you might want to learn about, we either have content or maybe we can build some.
So it would be like a one topic workshop, but go in depth.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a 3 hour thing again. It would be something short, maybe a lunch and learn type of environment. Open to whoever. I don't really have any logistics as far as whether it be monthly or quarterly or as is or.
Like the idea, like the idea of a major topic deep dive.
Mhm.
It's great.
Great, awesome. Thank you. Want to point out a few things, articles and some thank yous in the back of your packet. Couple articles, City of Conroe, PFAS, some different updated articles. We like to include kind of what's in the news type of articles, either, you know, things that might affect us or things in the region. So we usually try to put things like that in. And then anytime we get a thank you from a customer, we don't take that lightly. We really like to, seriously, I mean, it takes a lot for someone to thank someone.
Exactly.
This time.
It's easy to complain, right?
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
I really appreciate when I see those thank yous. So I like to share those with you. I wanted to talk about two things. One is through a couple of your residents, they orchestrated through a young man named Andrew Ripa to do a planting project on Spindletop detention pond. And so I wanted to kind of update you on that. It is complete, and I'll pass around some pictures of kind of what he did. He took it upon himself as an Eagle Scout project. And I think he did a great job. He coordinated, communicated well with Mike and I on the parameters on where he put the equipment in, or he brought the equipment in. He got the workforce that he needed, and he completed the project. And wanted to just point out publicly that we really appreciate his efforts for his Eagle Scout project, and wanted to see if sometimes in the past boards have maybe honored an individual to do something with a certificate or something of that nature. Wanted to see if you'd be interested in doing something like that.
I love the community outreach. That's
Absolutely.
perfect.
Yeah. And this was in response to the community addressing the adjacent development was just a new visual for them, right? And there were some gaps in kind of the tree buffer along that line. And this was like kind of an idea, one, for the environment, but two, to also kind of create some long-term kind of buffer, visual buffer, I think was part of the deal. We went through the engineering on the detention pond to make sure that it wasn't going to jeopardize the operation of the facility, and he executed the project very well.
Who donated the trees?
Don't know. I don't remember. He did say they were donated.
Yeah.
I don't recall who it was. We weren't involved in that piece of it.
How about irrigation? Is the township gonna?
At this moment, hadn't been, I think that's the next step.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think Alan,
Alan,
Grant,
I know you're talking about.
Yeah, is, drive some of this too, but, so I think in the past, he's kind of talked about irrigation on different areas. I'm sure that'll come up, but at this point, that wasn't part of this.
The road north of, is it northwest of the Spindletop? The township recently planted like 300 trees along that embankment. So that was to me, that of Alan's work, that was a real positive outcome that the township agreed.
Yeah, they have irrigation up there.
And they have did they start the irrigation again?
Yes.
You did? Okay, so they'll survive, hopefully.
So, we can prepare some sort of letter or certificate of appreciation if you're interested on your behalf, and bring that to you next month.
That'd be nice.
Sure. We'll make that happen. Wanted to update you right at the end of the meeting last month. We talked about a collapse and a sinkhole there on that ditch. And it was, I think it's Legacy Point Ditch is what we call it. The street that kind of backs up to it is Silver Branch. Can't remember the street name, but anyway, Legacy Point is the ditch name. That project is complete, and we're just cleaning up the work, but it's been put back together and fixed.
How much did that roughly cost?
That ended up being, I think it was right around 40.
9-7.
No, that was the other project. Second. 45,550. Yeah, 45,5.
And you had mentioned before you were going to do a survey to see if any other
That's
project.
still ongoing, yes.
That's ongoing now.
We're working
Just start
with,
following this.
So for the first ditch, 45K.
for the first time.
Pipe, yeah.
And, I would like to assess how many more of these we have so that we can plan ahead.
Platform, yeah.
Yeah, not react to cave-ins.
When do you think that assessment will be done?
Ideally, what we're trying to get it
Across them all months.
across all MUDs, and we're trying to get it ready for the budget process. So the budget process starts, I think, in July and August, and we'll adopt it in September. So we're gonna try to get some numbers best we can for the WWA budget for each MUD.
You don't have any like pie in the sky figures of how many you think there are?
I don't want to guess. A lot of
Okay, I'm sorry I asked.
That's all right. With that, communications report, John?
Evening. Hi. All right, page 42 begins your communications report. You'll see there, I pulled just some information from our strategic plan, especially for new directors, our overarching goals with communications, and then our goals for this quarter, third quarter, where the focus is on water conservation. That runs June through August. On the next page there up top, we did receive a number of materials from Holloway, our infrastructure communications consultant, we being the Public Education Committee. Those materials are listed there. We have reviewed those, provided our comments to Holloway. They're consolidating those comments, and we'll give some updated materials back. Did want to let you know that we're trying to work out a way for Holloway here in the near future to meet with directors in person. So you can ask them questions, hear from them directly. We're hoping sometime by August to make that happen. Or likely in August. So.
Who's the account manager from Holloway?
I'm sorry,
Who's the account manager from Holloway?
the account manager. I don't know who the account manager, our primary point of contact is Connor. Thank you, Connor Stowe.
He's a project manager.
Okay,
And then the owner, Ms. Holloway is in charge.
okay,
She's been to a couple meetings, but
Okay.
Connor's the project manager.
thank you.
You've got some examples of current advertising materials there on the next 2 pages, and I did want to touch on the water bill ad. Those got flip-flopped. I apologize. The current ad out on the water bill right now has to do with auto pay. That's the one in orange. The upcoming one that will come out at the end of the month will speak to the CCRs coming out that are going to be mailed out to every customer, or water quality reports. So again, those get mailed to every customer, and we also post those online on our website. They'll live there year round. And then we message about that, email, social media, and so forth, to really make sure folks are aware that they're out there and to take a look at it. So, any questions?
I was communication, but I got a either a text or an email about transferring to ACH payment.
Yeah.
And
I do too.
so I've done that. So when I sign up for one, it drops me from the other. So, and we're leaving the other structure.
That says June
Entirely.
25th, I believe, is the
Yeah.
deadline.
That's right.
To the next one.
So that will allow, if you're already paying that way, that'll allow you to switch over to WaterSmart if you hadn't. Before, you could be on WaterSmart and pay through the other portal.
Right.
That's
I'm
what I-
trying to bring it all together.
Consolidate.
Get a little simpler for customers.
We've got about 7,000 customers left to move over.
I only got off a few days ago, so I may be one of those 7,000.
Yeah, we're making good headway. Thank you.
You. What's next?
Okay. Sir, general managers, trustee. Well, I'm the trustee. We've kind of talked about the big topic was with SRA was the amendment to the contract. We didn't pass it, others did. And I'll be honest with you, the note that Ed sent out with that modification, to me, goes a long way to settling, I mean, you know, addressing some of our concerns. And I guess we then have to wait for the output of the study. And I think if they have a more, how would you say, accommodating discussion in the past, I think some of that'll go away. That was the topic. There may be some other topics, but I think we can kind of wait for the trustee meeting, decide what's going to be on the agenda for the future. And that's about it. So next is
Closed session.
closed session.
Session, so we're gonna stay. Just gonna step out.
Do you mind if I use the washroom?